Sadma Vandamuni Sabadana Mate Jahara Prasade Hai He Baba Toliya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Koriya Kya
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Yati Ese Uttama Gati
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ya Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
चक्षुधान दिलए जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakchudan
दिलए जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलए जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakchudan Diloe Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita
प्रेम भक्ति आहा होते अविद्या विनाशायते
Bhakti Ahoite Avidya Vinashayate
प्रेम भक्ति आहा होते अविद्या विनाशायते
Prema Bhakti Ahoite Avidya Vinashayate
विदिगाय हर चरितो
Vidigaya Hara Charito
विदिगाय हर चरितो
Vidigaya Hara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu
Adamaya Narabandhu
Lokanath Lokera Jivana
Lokanath
Lokanath
Lokera
Lokera
Jivana
Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana
Lokanath
Lokanath
Lokera
Lokera
Jivana
Jivana Oh ha ha Prabhu Koro Daya Deho Moye Padachaya Aha Prabhu
Prabhu
Koro Daya
Korodaya Deha
Moye
Mare
Padachaya
Padachaya
Vivesha Gukshu Tribhuvana Vivesh
Vyasha
Gukshu
Gukshu
Tribhuvana
Bhuvana
Vivesha Gukshu Tribhuvana Vivesha
Vyasha
Gukshu
Shukti
Tribhuvana
Bhuvana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Gurudev Patita Pavana
Gurudev Patita Pavana
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Gurudeva 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 Jaya Gurudeva
Jaya Gurudeva 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 Jaya Gurudeva Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatyatishatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyatishatarine
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna,
Hare
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama Rama
Rama Rama,
Rama
Sitar.
Hare
Hare
Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Rama
Aniruddha.
Hare Hare Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Aniruddha. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Everyone shout.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Aditi, shout.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Together, everyone. Jaya Nitai
Sachinandana, Nitai Sachinandana, Nitai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari
again.
Jaya Nitai Sachinandana, Nitai Sachinandana, Nitai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari.
Jaya Prabhupada, everyone. Jaya
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shata Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Anantavati Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, ISKCON Vibhuti Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Ishvasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mathura Dham ki jai, Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai, Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the interest of time, I think we'll just have Shrikar and I switch off and then everyone else can follow.
Okay.
Shrikar, you start.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Kunja Bihari,
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadari
Jaya Gopi Chandravallabha Jaya Girivardhari
Jaya Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja
Everyone, Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe
Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari
Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Pass. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev Guru Dev Guru Dev Jaya Jaya Guru Dev
Jaya Jaya Guru Dev Guru Guru Dev Jaya Jaya
Hari Bol, everyone. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Shri Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai Hari Bol
Bala Nitai Prabhu ki
Jai
jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I don't see Baladev who joined. Do you want to continue the kirtan? Srikar,
Yes, Prabhuji.
do you want to continue the kirtan? I don't see Baladev who
Oh,
joined.
Bala Nitai
Yeah,
Prabhu just
okay, he
joined.
just joined.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Thanks to Baladev Prabhu, Jarat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Okay, Haribol.
Krishna.
Forgive my tardiness. I'm just coming to know this morning that I'm supposed to be giving.
Oh, okay.
I happened to look on the YouTube.
This will be verse 1923.
What?
1923.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Haribol, everyone. Let's accept my dandavats. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Varanga Ki Jai. Everyone can hear me okay? I hope.
Yes, Guruji.
Okay. Everyone, please recite the invocation mantra with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we have Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 23. I don't know if someone wants to bring it up. I didn't have time to do any of that. We can chant the verse together. Otherwise, we'll just go from beautiful darshan of Uni, I think, is there. So, Jai. Bhaktya Veshya Mano Yasmin. Bhaktya Veshya Mano Yasmin. Vachayan Namakirtayan. Vachayan Namakirtayan. Jajan Kalaveshram Yogi. Jajan Kalaveshram Yogi. Uchate Karmakarmabi. Uchate Karmabi. Bhaktya Veshya Mano Yasmin. Vacha Yanama Kirtayan. Tyajan Kalevaram Yogi. Uchate Karma Bihi. Does anybody want to chant this verse?
Bhaktyavesh mano yasmin vacha yannam kirtayan tajan kalevaram yogi uchyate kama karma bihi.
Bhaktyaveşamano yasmin vacha yannama kirtayan tyajan kalevaram yogi muchyate kama karmabhi.
Bhaktyaveshya mano yasmin vachayannama kirtan tyajan kalevaram yogi mukyate kama karbihi.
Neelam? No? Okay. Anybody else? Who's else on here? Oh, I see Ganga. No? Anybody? Okay. Vijay Lakshmi, chant this verse. No? Vibha.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
What is
Krishna.
the verse
Hare,
number, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You want to chant this verse, either of you? No? Okay. It's becoming too confusing. Let's move on. Bhaktya, without devote attention. With devote attention, sorry. Bhaktya, with devote attention. Aveshya, meditating. Manaha, mind. Yasmin, in who. Vacha, by words. Yat Krishna, Nama, holy name. Kirtayan, by chanting. Tyajan, quitting. Kalevaram, his material body. Yogi, the devotee. Uchate, gets released. Kama karabihi, from fruitive activities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. Again, translation. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of quitting the material body. Super nice verse. So, purport. Yoga means concentration of the mind detached from all other subject matter. And actually, such concentration is samadhi, or cent% engagement in the service of the Lord. One who concentrates his attention in that matter is called a yogi. Such a yogi, devotee of the Lord, engages himself 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord so that his whole attention is engrossed with the thoughts of the Lord in ninefold devotional service, namely hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, praying, becoming a voluntary servant, carrying out orders, establishing a friendly relationship, or offering all that one may possess in the service of the Lord. By such practice of yoga, or linking up in the service of the Lord, one is recognized by the Lord himself, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of samadhi. The Lord calls such a rare devotee the best among all the yogis. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with a perfect sense of consciousness, and thus, by chanting his holy name before quitting the body, the yogi is at once transferred by the internal potency of the Lord to one of the eternal planets where there is no question of material life and its concomitant factors. In material existence, a living being has to endure the material conditions of threefold miseries, life after life, according to his fruitive work. Such material life is produced by material desires only. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desires of the living being, but they are applied in the right cause of devotional service. Well, this is a very nice point. This qualifies his desire to be transferred to the spiritual sky. General Bhishmadev is referring to a particular type of yoga called Bhakti Yoga. And he was fortunate enough to have the Lord directly in his presence before he quitted his material body. He therefore desired that the Lord stay before his view in the following verses. And Bhishmadev will carry on with more nectar. This is really nice verse. I will do my best, according to my limited abilities, to unpack all of the nectar that Srila Prabhupada is giving here in this beautiful verse that Bhishmadev is telling Yudhishthira Maharaj while he's laying on his bed of arrows. I'm sure most have gone through every verse thus far. So we know some background to what's happening. I want to dive into this first because, man, it's really nice. Let's first offer our pranams to our Guru, who has given us the ability to even speak or read such subject matters. Om Agyan Trimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalai Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Vanchakarpa Trubhischa Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada's talking about yoga here. Yoga means concentration of the mind, detached from all other subject matter. So whatever the mind is being concentrated on, it is not being is not being distracted by anything else. An actual concentration, when one actually fixes their mind 100% on the engagement in the service of the Lord, this is called samadhi. So there's different types of yogis. Beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse. Brahman miti, Brahmamiti, Bhagavanti Sabdite. So for the Brahmavadis, their meditation is on the Brahman, the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord. For the Ashtanga yogi, one is concentrated in Paramatma, the Lord within the heart. And for the Bhakta yogi, their meditation is on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, one who possesses all six opulences. So this threefold features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada explains different yogis are meditating in different ways. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that the Bhakti yogi is engaged 24 hours a day on the service of the Lord. His whole attention is engrossed on the thoughts of the Lord. And one achieves this through the ninefold processes of devotional service. Hearing, chanting, remembering. So hearing Parikshit Maharaj, we're beginning his journey of 7 days in this beginning chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, perfected his life by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam by Shukadev Goswami, who perfected his life by chanting. Remembering the Lord, trying to remember who perfected their lives. Rupa Goswami explains each aspect of devotional service, and we can study their lives to see how they. Anybody remembering? I am not remembering.
Is it about the 9% devotional service exemplified by the devotees?
What?
Is it about the devotees who exemplify who exemplify the 9?
Yeah, who is remembering? Do you remember?
Smaranam is Prahlad Maharaj.
Was it Prahlad Maharaj? Couldn't remember if he was prayer or remembering.
No, a prayer is Akrura and remembrance is Prahlad Maharaj.
Yes, thank you. Remembering Prahlad Maharaj worshipping Prithu Maharaj, praying Akrura, becoming a voluntary servant, be Lakshmi Devi, I think.
Lakshmi Devi is Padasevanam. Yeah.
Padasevanam, worshipping the lotus feet. Remember, so we're missing a few here. Should probably establishing friendly relationship. That is
Arjuna.
Carrying out orders.
Arjuna.
Carrying out orders. I think
Yeah,
that's
so Shravanam is Sukadeva Goswami, Shravanam Kirtanam is the Shravanam is Prashit Maharaj, Kirtanam is Sukadeva Goswami, Kirtanam Smaranam is Prahlad Maharaj, Padasevanam is Lakshmi, Mother Lakshmi, Archanam is Prithu Maharaj, Mandaram is Akrura, Acharvan Dasyam is Hanuman, Dasyam Sakhyam is Arjuna, Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam is Bali Maharaj.
carrying out orders, I'm assuming is Srila Prabhupada is referring to as Dasyam here.
Yes, Dasyam here, that's Hanuman.
Offering all of one's possessions. Yes, Bali Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu, for that. By such practice of yoga or linking up of the service to the Lord, one is recognized by the Supreme Lord, and it is and Srila Prabhupada is saying how Srimad Bhagavad Gita is extolling the perfectional stage of samadhi. These 9 processes of devotional service are what attract the Lord's mercy. Srila Prabhupada is saying here is by such practice of yoga, one is recognized by the Lord. So the Lord begins to see that one is happily or just engaged. So within these 9 processes, Srila Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada, Nectar of Devotion, his summary study, that there's different stages in which one performs devotional service. So the beginning stages, sadhana bhakti, the spiritual master is engaging the disciple in regulated devotional service. Sadhana bhakti, I think the Sanskrit Vaidhi bhakti, regulated devotional service, where the spiritual master is generally, in to lack of better words, ordering the disciple to engage in such activities as hearing, chanting, such and such. There's no taste. When we begin, yeah, there might be a taste. Wow, yeah, this is fantastic. We're chanting the holy name. We hear about all of the 6 Goswamis and their nectar. We hear about Lord Chaitanya and how he was dancing in the street and everyone was ecstatic. And Nityananda Prabhu would travel from Puri to Bengal and they would become so absorbed in chanting the holy name that they would lose track of where they were, and they'd go like 10 miles out of the way. They'd have to turn around and go back. And by the time they realized they were also again going in the wrong direction, completely absorbed in chanting the holy name. And you have Narottam Das Thakur, who is sitting in Vrindavan chanting the holy name, and the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are manifesting in there. Yeah, we begin to think, yes, in 2 short months, I will be there. Just started chanting Hare Krishna 2 weeks ago, and guaranteed within a year, I'm just going to be completely absorbed like, oh, these great devotees. I don't know if any of you had that experience, but I've heard so many devotees speak like this. There's also, I think I for sure have thought in similar ways, and whatever, almost 20 years later, I'm still struggling with keeping my attention on chanting when I'm chanting my round. So this is a long process, but we have these examples to give us some inspiration that, if we are sincere and we continue with dedication and enthusiasm, that one day Krishna will reveal such things. And Srila Prabhupada talks about this later on. Hopefully I can articulate such ways that we can get there. So Rupa Goswami he explains that this Vaidhi Bhakti is meant to bring us to the next platform of sadhana bhakti, or spontaneous devotion. Sanskrit is
Raganuga.
Raganuga. I kept wanting to say Rupanuga, but that is following in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. Raganuga, spontaneous devotion, where when I first started, reading Nectar of Devotion many years ago, it's kind of like, okay, how does this, how do we know, like, we're at one place or another? And Rupa Goswami explains it, or Srila Prabhupada, I'm not sure the verses. I never actually read the verse form of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Situ, but only Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion summary study. But it's explained very simply, very, very simply, that Srila Prabhupada, he explains it in such a simple way, and related to our, a devotee's, especially the devotees living in the temple, but everyday life, that the spiritual master orders us to wake up early in the morning. So we do it, and we take our shower, we attend Mangal Arati, we chant our rounds. Sometimes we have to chant our rounds before Mangal Arati because we get on the altar and do our deity seva, dressing or archan worship, bathing of the deity. So we are doing these things, and it's difficult, and we don't particularly like getting up early because we'd rather sleep. But we do it anyway, and then we engage in this archana process where we're told that Krishna likes flowers, so we get flowers and we offer them. But then there's a certain stage in one's morning routine that we begin to enjoy waking up early, because we get to see the Lord and see his beautiful form on the altar and sing to the prayers to our Guru, who has given us so much. And also, we greet Radha and Krishna in the morning during Mangal Arati with the Mahamantra, and we can meditate and see their beautiful form. They can see us, and we get to perform the beautiful and wonderful service to them. And these beautiful flowers that are grown, we are spontaneously inspired to decorate the deity in such a beautiful way that is pleasing to him and the devotees. And thus we are spontaneously engaging in the devotional service of the Lord. It's very simple. It's from being ordered, or I'm having to do this service, to I'm looking forward to doing this service. Of course, it's much deeper than that also, but that is a very simple way of putting it. But and into the higher aspects outside of sadhana bhakti, where one is, it's, from what I understand, Raganu Bhakti is also within the realms of sadhana bhakti. One becomes completely spontaneous in their love and deep absorption. So we can study the through Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a wonderful place to see the different types of devotees and different ways that they are engaging in the service of the Lord in one of these 9 processes. There's one devotee who's engaged in all 9 processes, and his name just escaped me. Artam Vilas, you remember?
Ambrish Maharaj, Prabhuji.
Ambrish Maharaj, yes. Ambrish Maharaj was engaged in all 9 processes, and thus his pastimes are later on in Srimad Bhagavatam. We can read him. And there's also Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya's devotees, how they're engaged in the process of devotional service, and how Lord Chaitanya went around to all of the different places in India, and he told the devotees to just simply chant the holy name. There's no other need to do anything else. You just chant, dance, clap your hands, tell other people about Krishna with your family, with your friends, your whole village. There's no need to leave your homes. Just come together and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's for all of us grahastas. Come together, chant the holy name, remember Krishna, speak about Krishna with each other and with everyone we meet, and thus we perfect our lives. And then other devotees like the 6 Goswamis, he instructed in the ways of sannyas, or the renounced order. And his example of the renounced order is like no other. One can't even begin to imitate such levels of renunciation that Lord Chaitanya exhibited. So by practicing yoga, namely the 3-fold processes of devotional service, Srila Prabhupada saying here, as we link up with the Lord recognizes us, and as explained in Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of Samhati, the Lord calls such a rare devotee the best among the yogis. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with perfect sense of consciousness, and thus by chanting the holy name before quitting the body, the yogi at once is transferred by the internal potency of the Lord to the eternal planets where the Lord, where there is no question of material life and its concomitant factors. That's a very long sentence. So, such a perfect yogi is enabled. Yes. So when I was reading this, I was thinking about a very good example of this is Narada Muni, because Narada Muni, earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam, a few chapters back, you may remember, he was sitting in meditation in the forest, as was instructed by the Mahabhagavats that gave him their remnants, and thus he was purified, and as a young boy went out into the forest and started performing devotional service, meditating on the Lord within his heart. At one point, the Lord revealed himself to Narada Muni, and Narada was completely ecstatic, and that he saw the Lord in his heart. It was revealed in his mind through the medium of the heart. So it's explained, I've heard explained that the mind is a reflection of the heart. So when the heart becomes purified, the mind becomes purified. To the extent that the heart is still contaminated with desires for material life, the mind is thus reflects that. So if our mind is disturbed, our mind is not concentrated, we can see that we still have some dirt to extract. And over the last few years, I've come to realize the importance of pulling out the weeds that one while one is chanting. So Lord Chaitanya he gives us a beautiful analogy of the Bhakti Lata Bija, the creeper of devotion in the heart. And that one has to be a very attentive gardener when they're cultivating that Bhakti Lata Bij, that seed of devotion, that little sproutling that's come up in our heart or in our mind or whatever, in our consciousness, in our lives, however you want to put it. That little creeper is very tender. When you first, I don't know how many of you on this Zoom call have cultivated plants, but when you put a seed in the ground and it sprouts up out of the soil, it's very tender. One has to be careful. It can be, eaten by slugs. It can be overcome by weeds. Right now we've planted marigolds and there's all these plants around it, and the marigolds are not flourishing because there's so many other plants around it. They're not able to get the sun. So if we don't, Lord Chaitanya is explaining that as our creeper grows, there's a bunch of weeds that are growing also. Lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion, all of these 6 unwanted desires in the heart are also beginning to sprout, or not beginning to sprout, they're also growing, because we are watering that seed with what? Hearing, chanting, remembering these 9 processes of devotional service that we were just discussing, that we're watering our seed of devotion with, our plant, our little creeper, with the 9 processes. The weeds are also getting some water. We're getting some prestige by our devotional service. We're a fantastic mridanga player. We are a great cook. We are a good dresser of the deities. We are a beautiful singer, or a fantastic example of a grahasta family, or a perfect brahmachari, a sannyasi. I give such good classes. Oh, Prabhu, oh, Mata, you're speaking so nicely on this. You must be so realized. And then when we hear these praises, if we don't offer it all to Krishna and Guru, we may become proud, and thus the seed, that weed of pride begins to become prominent. We have to rip out these weeds. As Lord Chaitanya says, we have to go through and pluck out these unwanted things so that our creeper can stay healthy. That is the challenge, finding the weeds, recognizing them. This is very wonderful. Having loving relationships with the devotees, our husbands or wives are good at pointing out these things. And when done in loving and respectful and a way to encourage each other in the process of becoming perfect, this is very good. When our friends, our family, our kids, a lot of times point out our faults, we can gain so much from this. So Narada Muni was elated that I am seeing the Lord in my heart. This is fantastic. And the next day he tried to do the exact same thing again with no result. And again, the mechanical process of sitting this way, thinking this way, breathing this way, meditating this way was not bearing the result that he was expecting. And at one point, the Lord was so pleased with his efforts that he appeared before him and said, it is by my causeless mercy that I have given you a taste of seeing me, to give you inspiration to carry on. But you will not see me again in this lifetime. But carry on with your service with enthusiasm, and you will be rewarded. And thus we have our Narada Muni, who travels around and liberates everybody he comes in contact with. So
the Lord can similarly do this to us. I don't know if any of you have experienced such a thing where at one point we have really ecstatic taste for any one of the 9 processes of devotional service, and at one point the taste may have dried up, and we're like, oh, I've no taste to do this. But this oftentimes a test. Are we doing it for the taste, or are we doing it for the pleasure of the Lord? Because our goal is to please Krishna. It's not to taste the nectar of engaging in the process of serving Krishna. There's some devotees, I think in Krishna book or 10th canto, he's fanning Krishna and he's ecstatic. And so he's crying in ecstatic love for fanning Krishna, and he's chastising the tears that, you're in the way of my service. I can't see the Lord to fan him properly. So, like this, the Lord, by his causeless mercy, or as Srila Prabhupada said, by his divine grace, he gives us, by his divine grace, the perfect sense of consciousness, that we can see him in our minds. So it's kind of similar. I'm thinking similarly to how Arjuna says that is, and when he says that, in Bhagavad Gita, they're talking about, meditation and concentrating the mind, and Arjuna's like, it's like trying to control my mind is like trying to control the raging wind. It's like impossible. And Krishna says by constant practice and detachment, one can do it. And I've heard explained that Krishna can control the raging wind. We can't control it, but Krishna can. It's explained that by the will of Krishna, the wind is blowing, and by the will of Krishna, the wind stops blowing. And so Krishna is the source and all power behind everything. So there's nothing too challenging for him. So Krishna, he can control our minds. There's no problem, but he wants to see that we are endeavoring to do so. And when that time comes where he is satisfied with the endeavor, he empowers us, or he takes control of the mind. Like Prabhupada is saying here, that such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with perfect sense of consciousness. And thus, when we chant the holy name while we're quitting the body, we are transferred to the spiritual realm, where we can engage in the process, we can engage in the eternal service of the Lord without the problems of the material world. So Srila Prabhupada begins to explain here that the material world is of 9-fold miseries. So we have miseries caused by other living entities, miseries caused by our own mind, body, senses, and there is miseries caused by natural disturbances. So other living entities, our own problems via the body, the senses, the mind, and natural disturbances. So other living entities, mosquitoes, other human beings disturbing us or allowing us to be disturbed. There's diseases were now all been affected by the COVID-19 virus, little viruses that get in our bodies, other places, malaria, the flu, all of these sicknesses come about by other living entities, little viruses. Our own mind, our own senses, our own body. Sometimes the back aches as we get older. You know, some people suffer from migraine headaches, from mental disturbances, concentration issues, eating problems. The list goes on. Any one of us can take one moment and experience some discomfort. I don't know if you're sitting on the floor, your back may be hurting, your hips, your knees when you get up from sitting on the floor for too long. Endless problems, endless suffering caused by the body. And natural disturbances like hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes and erupting volcanoes recently, right? Some years ago, last year, the year before, in Hawaii, so much disturbance from erupting volcanoes. So there's no end to the number of, disturbances namely in the condition of the threefold miseries, life after life, Srila Prabhupada saying, and we get our different karmas or our different reactions in relation to the threefold miseries according to our fruitive work. So every time such material life is produced by material desires only. The only reason that we are in the material world is because we have a desire to be here, to enjoy separately from the Lord, as Srila Prabhupada explains. So material desires keep us bound, right? We all know the philosophy. We all know that from our previous lives, we've engaged in such activity that we are bearing fruit now, or we will bear fruit in the future. And thus we process and deal with the various karmic reactions according to our previous conditionings which make up our current conditioning, in which we process, relate, and interact with the modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desires of the living being, but they are applied in the right cause of devotional service. Rupa Goswami calls this the Sanskrit terms are not, they're evading my mind. What's it called? Yukta Vairagya, engaging our natural propensities in the service of the Lord. So devotional service to the Lord does not kill our natural desires. We can see that by to Prahlad Maharaj, the way he puts it is like when we control an itch. So material desire comes up and we control that desire. Just like someone with, I'm sure everyone on this call has gotten a mosquito bite or a spider bite or some kind of insect bite where it itches. And the more you itch it, the more you scratch it, the more itchy it gets. And if you do too much scratching, then it begins bleeding. So the material desires that we have must be controlled just like that. That urge comes and we control it. the nectar of instruction. That first verse is the different urges. The sober person can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So Srila Prabhupada gives a long, beautiful, wonderful purport on this. But when we're engaging in devotional service, sometimes we think, at least I thought, that these material desires one day would just go away. But the longer I practice trying to meditate on the Lord and chant his holy name, that the material desires not necessarily go away, but we begin to develop a non-taste to engage in them. And also the urge to tolerate them. We begin to gain strength in tolerating the urges. Anyway, I don't have too much realization on it because it's very difficult to control. But I really like this point Srila Prabhupada is pulling out here, is that we don't necessarily, all of the material desires don't necessarily go away. They're still there, but they are purified through the process of devotional service. So the one example that's popping in my head right now is Raghunath Das Goswami. He's sitting on the banks of the Radhakund doing his bhajan, and he suddenly has a desire to excavate Radhakund and Shamkund and make it a very beautiful and wonderful place for devotees to come and get purified and associate with Radha and Krishna through their kundas. And he immediately throws that notion aside, thinking that it's a material desire. Gosh, I need all this money and all this wealth, and what do I don't want to distract myself with such desires of wealth and money. So he dismisses it. But of course, it's not a material desire for him. He is very much absorbed in pleasing the Lord. He's an eternal associate of the Lord. Let's not confuse. I'm not pointing this out to say like, oh, Raghunath Das had a material desire. No, but he saw it as a material desire. That's his consciousness, that I am seeing this as a material desire, and thus I am going to, even though it to this day we have Radhakund and Shamkund because of that, but because the desire was actually pure, the Lord and also Radha and Krishna desired it. They inspired a wealthy man to come down and give a donation to Raghunath Das to do this. So he didn't even have to try to, get the money. It just came to the Lord's, by the Lord's desire. Anyway, that thought just came into mind, that even such exalted devotees as Raghunath Das, they're checking their mind constantly to weed out any material desire or seemingly material desire. Anyway, we're almost out of time. Let's finish this purport again, because it's such a nectar. By chanting the holy name with purified consciousness by the divine grace of the Lord, one is transferred to the spiritual sky. And so General Bhishma is referring to a particular type of yoga, which we went over, bhakti yoga, the yoga in which a bhakta performs. And we briefly discussed that there are various types of yogis, the Brahmavadis, the Ashtangas, and the Bhaktas. And within each category, there's different types that, you know, I don't necessarily know a whole lot about, but and Bhishmadev, being a pure devotee, is very fortunate that the Lord is like standing right in front of him. While he's quitting his body, he can see the beautiful form of Krishna. And therefore desire that the Lord stay in his view, because the Lord is pleased with his devotees by their sacrifice, by their love, by their dedication. And with that, I pray that we can all absorb ourselves in the process of devotional service in any one or many of the ninefold processes, that we can please our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Sri Nitai Sachinandan, Radha and Krishna, that they're pleased with us, all of you, and bless all of us, all of you, with concentrated, fixed devotional service. Are there any questions or comments that someone wants to bring up?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful lecture. And you said you did not prepare, but it didn't look like you didn't prepare. Looks like you're well prepared for the conversation. Thank you. I have a question. I think most of the examples that we were giving seems to be the exalted souls like Narada Muni and Bali Maharaj, and then Prahlad Maharaj and Goswamis and people like that, right? But when I hear that, I feel that, oh man, the destination is so far away, the standard is so high. I mean, it's like completely unreachable goal. I mean, why bother, right? I mean, again, it's not that I'm thinking, it's not that that's my will, but at least the thought comes across to me. At least I'm able to acknowledge it. It's not that I will follow through the thought, but the thought comes to me, oh, it's like such a high standard. I mean, there is nobody, I can't relate to them, right? So they're like really, really special place. Yeah. So, I mean, any perspective from your end?
I feel the same way. Yeah, studying these great souls, but we can gain so much inspiration from them that yeah, a lot of these personalities are they're direct descendants from the spiritual world, come to perform a particular lila in the association of the Lord, or yeah, or some great soul that's been, you know, yeah, I know what you mean. It can be wonderful, and it can be overwhelming at the same time. Like, I feel you. Am I ever? There's no way I'm ever going to be able to get to that point. So, but I go back to thinking about recently. I had this, like, this was a serious part, something I had to seriously like go through. The mind was very much disturbed, and I really had to dig deep in finding like what am I doing? Like, do I have the enthusiasm to continue carrying on in this process? Like, it becomes very intense at times, but every time anything like that ever happens, I go back to, why did I even begin practicing devotional service in the first place? Why did I what attracted me to this process? Something did, and for each of us, it's something different. And I mean, at least for me, hearing and chanting help. If I'm not hearing properly or chanting properly, there's that struggle becomes more difficult. But when I hear about the pastimes of the Lord, when I read about these different souls, these different personalities, and even though they're at this really high level, they, I don't know, for me, they are also very practical. Like, I don't know if I can articulate the words properly, and I don't know if it necessarily is relating to the specific question. The other, I guess, sorry, my mind is going like 4 different places at one time. So I guess to be more direct, so that I don't take up too much more time, I often look at the devotees in, especially like Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who have dedicated their lives for the last 50 or some odd years to the process of serving their spiritual master, that they are, many of, they all grew up in various different circumstances of material life, some wealthy, some poor, some already renounced from desires of material life to completely absorbed in material enjoyment. So you can see throughout all of their different, when we read about or hear from them, we can gain much inspiration and much perspective of their inspiration, their journey, and we can sometimes relate to it, sometimes we can't, but that helps. I find the association of devotees helps a lot, because everybody has different realizations, and when we talk about our realizations and we share our realizations and we chant together and we try to really develop relationships, we can we can see how, oh, they're doing this, maybe I try that. Oh, that works for me. That's really good, and I don't know, when when devotees like Narottam Das Thakur and their songs, or like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his songs, when they're talking about their fallen state, we know they're doing that for our benefit. But what is it that they're doing that's different than what I'm doing? They're absorbed in the devotional service. And that's something that I take away from that, is that they're saying, oh, Krishna, I'm most fallen. Oh, Krishna, I can't remember you. My whole life has been wasted in the pursuit of material desire, when I could have used it in the service, in your service. But when we look at that, that's their consciousness. They are thinking that way, but they're acting in a different way. So we're almost opposite. Sometimes we think we're engaged in devotional service, but we're more absorbed in. But utilizing these examples and trying to follow in their footsteps. But also we need to be genuine. One I have this quote that this wonderful devotee gave me one time, gave us, me and my wife, to I'll read it to you. It's very, very sweet. Continue to chant Hare Krishna, both in kirtan and with japa. Increase this as far as possible. Relish the wealth of the process of bhakti yoga. Never be artificial. but give the process the time it needs to increase in intensity. This will enrich your lives in wondrous ways. So every one of us is going to have a different time frame in which our time of, as using Srila Prabhupada's words here, samadhi comes, that our absorption comes. But it's in the moment to moment that we try to engage in that process and please our spiritual masters. I don't know if that specifically answers your question.
But I get the point, Prabhuji. I think, as you said in the beginning, right? You should start looking at why did you even start in the first place?
Yeah.
So that perhaps answers, at least for me, the question that I asked.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Nothing.
Thank you, Prabhu, for giving a nice lecture. Sorry I joined late, other services, but appreciate your mood in giving the lecture.
Well, didn't even know you had joined. Hare Krishna, happy you're here.
Hare Krishna. So thank you. I think you kind of answered, you talked about a little bit about Ravi Prabhu's question, and that you talked about Yukta Vairagya. And I kind of think of it like, accept the essence. The details may be different between different super advanced pure devotees, but there's an essence of what their behavior and activity are showing us. And I think, like you said, that you can try to get inspiration from that, not necessarily imitation from that. So I think I was reading somewhere that devotees are essence seekers. They try to seek the essence of activity and consciousness, and not necessarily trying to imitate an activity or consciousness that we're not at that level. So, nice question. Thank you. Today's lecture, Sunday Feast lecture,